Hi, I'm Nicholas Vitello.
And I'm Tyler Gable.
And I'm Michael Kent.
And we're Team 5, and we're going to be going over the case for Hong Kong Disneyland. I will begin by going over the firm overview. Hong Kong Disneyland is a joint venture between the Walt Disney Company and the Special Administrative Region Government of Hong Kong. Negotiations for Hong Kong Disneyland began in August of 1998, were finalized when Disney created the Hong Kong International Theme Park Limited and Hong Kong Disneyland Management Limited to help manage the park. Disney's mission statement is to be the happiest place on earth, and one of Disney's core values is to have conservationist ideals and to create a sense of community with the audience and customers that come through its gates. Disney's current strategy is to attract to its consumers while they are young. An average audience age for Disney is 4 to 5 years. Disney helps enhance their love of the parks through television, film, and their merchandising mediums. Even counterfeit merchandise that is sold in parts of Hong Kong and China help enhance a child's love of their parks. When approached by the Hong Kong government about localizing Hong Kong Disneyland to better fit the Chinese culture, Disney refused, stating that they wanted to give people of Hong Kong a more authentic experience of what a Disney park is like. Disney is great at selling Americana. Chinese people actually like the foreign nature of Disney. They like the idea of this Western character, Mickey Mouse, and all of his friends. Disney is also great at their content creation. Disney has so many mediums, as I said previously, like their film, their TV, and their merchandise that help enhance the park and help enhance the characters, what they do. And Disney is also great with their employee engagement. One of the vice presidents of human resources at Hong Kong Disneyland stated that the cast members are not stated as such, not stated as employees, because they're all part of the show. Hong Kong Theme Park Limited and Disney hold a 43% stake in Hong Kong Disneyland, and the Special Administrative Region Government of Hong Kong hold the other 57%, making them the two biggest stakeholders in the company's doings. Other stakeholders include the 1,700 plus employees Hong Kong Disneyland employs because they rely on Hong Kong Disneyland for their income. Competitors such as Ocean Park, one of the other biggest theme parks in Hong Kong, because they have to compete with Hong Kong Disneyland on a daily basis, as well as the citizens and other businesses that are in Hong Kong and mainland China due to the placement of Hong Kong Disneyland in relation to the citizens and businesses. Greatest business challenge facing Hong Kong Disneyland today is Disney is not using their assets correctly. Hong Kong Disneyland is not integrated enough with Chinese culture and is one of the smallest parks of all the Disney parks. This leads to a decline in park attendance. In 2011, the growth rate for Hong Kong Disneyland was 13.6%. In 2014, only 3 years later, that dropped down to 1.4%. Hong Kong Disneyland in 2015 reported its first annual loss since 2011 of 148 Hong Kong dollar million in the red, which is a 9.8% decrease in park attendance as well. Gary Goddard of the Goddard Theme and Entertainment firm suggests that Disney should increase the park size as well as integrate it with more Chinese culture, localize it more so the Chinese people can better understand and enjoy the park. I'm going to pass it off to Tyler.
Hello. I'm here to go over the environmental analysis. I'm going to talk about the internal factors first. So Disney's known for having all-inclusive resorts. That includes the plane ride, to the hotel, to the Disney-related attractions that they provide for you and your family. Disney's also one of the strongest brands. It's the 8th most valuable under Forbes.com. Also, they're known for their very diversified portfolio, having stock in ABC, ESPN, and owning other networks. They also have a really strong commitment to social responsibility, and they are known as one of the most desirable Fortune 500 to work for. As for the external factors of the environmental analysis, Hong Kong has seen GDP and PPP growth. So pretty much more and more customers, well, future customers to Disney are going to come around due to the extra money they might have in their pocket due to the growth of GDP and PPP. Also, the industry is growing really fast. Hong Kong is known for it as a tourist destination. So most tourist destinations have a lot of attractions and a lot of, maybe amusement parks or other attractions along that line. Asia is the second largest theme park market. 11 competitors plan to enter that market in the near future, 3 of which is Universal, Lego, and Moomin World. And there's 12.9 billion in market spending. So some options to help Disney improve revenues is to create more attractions. Hong Kong Disney has 18 fewer attractions than other Disneylands. Pretty much all the customers that went in there were pretty disappointed when they saw the lack of attractions in the park. Another option is to create an interactive storybook museum. It would be right near the entrance of the park, and it would help visitors understand the cartoon characters, so they won't be really confused and scared when they see giant mice and ducks walking around in costume. Also, to expand the park, we can build an indoor park and or resort. This is due to the bad weather that Hong Kong always sees. I go further into detail in that in the risk part of the PowerPoint slide. Also, another option though is for localization. We could hold more events related to Chinese culture. We could celebrate Chinese holidays like mid-fall and Independence Day. We could also focus more on Chinese characters in the parks like Mulan or Kung Fu Panda or any other character that relates to Chinese culture. Also, we should be providing Chinese-style cuisine in all of the Disney restaurants, just to make customers feel more at home and they can relax and enjoy the park. And I'm going to pass this over to Mike to finish off the options.
Another option that we were looking at was to better centralize our promotion. We were thinking about making sure that all of our ad designs will be localized in localized Chinese and English language to reach as many consumers as possible. We also wish to convey our knowledge about Hong Kong Disneyland to travel agencies. One of the biggest problems was that travel agencies in mainland China oversold Hong Kong Disneyland, and Hong Kong Disneyland had to turn away a lot of their consumers in the first year, which created a lot of negative publicity. Another thing we could do is promote through mass advertising. Make sure it's in localized Chinese and English in the newspapers, TV commercials, social media, and posters on public transportation. Not to mention selling Disney's products abroad to increase brand awareness through exportation. In terms of management strategy, as an option, we were looking into implementing a proper reward system. That way, our employees can be excited, so then that would make our consumers excited as well. We were also looking to rewarding travel agencies with discount tickets and reduced hotel prices to try to entice more customers. The strategy we decided to come up with, the strategy mix we decided to come up with was a 3-point strategy. Targeted advertising for Hong Kong and China, emphasizing the exotic Americana. We also looked at creating an interactive storybook museum and motivating our employees with better bonuses, increased share in the company's stock. We decided on targeted advertising because one of the main selling points is that Hong Kong Disneyland personifies Americana. It's exotic, it's foreign, and it's what worked for Japan Disneyland. It's not what worked for France Disneyland. France Disney saw Americana as an intrusion on their culture, whereas Japan saw it as a foreign experience and something that they would love to see, which is what we want to convey about Hong Kong Disneyland to Chinese mainland tourists. Additionally, we think that creating an interactive storybook museum would be a great way to market Disney's assets to the consumers, as opposed to building an entirely brand new ride. The storybook museum would be at the entrance of the park, and it wouldn't take up that much space. But it would also convey the message we're trying to tell our consumers about how great Disney is. Additionally, how can our employees be excited about, or how can our consumers be excited about Disney if our employees aren't excited about Disney? So by motivating our employees, we will then indirectly motivate our consumers to come and visit us. We have a 3-step implementation process. The first range is from 1 to 3 months, the second range is from 3 to 12 months, and the third range is from 13 onward. So for the first 3 months, we came up with signing an ad campaign, hiring creative analysts to design it and really make sure that it's in tune with the Chinese and Hong Kong cultures. We also will design the storybook area and provide employees with feedback surveys so we can find out what our employees really want out of working for us. We are also thinking about finding builders that we need to contract in order to make the storybook design area a possibility. From 3 to 12 months, we will run test ads in Hong Kong. That before we send them off to mainland China, where our main consumer is, so we can test it out and see if we're successful with that or not. That's also when we'll begin our construction, and hopefully we'll finish most of the construction, start running through safety checks, making sure everything is following proper guidelines. We will also implement our first test reward system for those first 8 months. That way we can gather feedback and do some more research on what our employees want. At the same time, we'll be monitoring our financials and keeping a check on that heartbeat so we don't overspend on any of our goals. And finally, from 1 year onwards, that's when we'll start running the ad campaign in China, and hopefully this will be the revised ad campaign from the initial one. And we will also revise a reward system and implement it appropriately based on our feedback. That's also when we intend to complete our construction and release the storybook area for public release. As for our goals and timeline, we looked at them realistically. We're not expecting profits for the first fiscal year based on the storybook and the ad campaign, because that's just unreasonable. But that's not to say that we won't be having profits later on. However, for year 2, we'll have a 1%. We expect to have a 1% increased attendance deriving directly from these goals and these projects. And then for years 3 onward, we're expecting to have a 3% increased attendance, and we will continue to check that heartbeat. As for the pro forma, these are in US dollars. So for the ad campaign, we're budgeting at $500,000, $342,000 for the TV ad, which is the average for national TV spots for 30 seconds, and we're going to budget approximately $158,000 for print media. For the storybook area construction costs, we're going to budget $1.5 million. This is based off of an approximate $2 million construction costs for basic rides. Since it's a storybook area and doesn't require a whole lot of engineering, it's a reduced price, but it's still going to be about 1.5. We assume we're not going to have more than 30 employees for the storybook area to run it, to keep it maintained. So we're going to add those to the 7,800. So from 7,800, 30 employees, we're looking at bonus costs for an employee implementation, a reward implementation program of approximately $800,000 maximum budget based on their performance. So the total cost will come out to $2.8 million. And so here's a pro forma, and we included it in Hong Kong dollars as well. So you can take a look at that as well. All right, and I'll pass it back to Tyler, who will take care of risks.
All right, I'm just going to touch base on the risk that Disney faces in Hong Kong. One major one is a risk of competition. There's a lot of attractions and a lot of amusement parks in Hong Kong as it is already. A couple examples are Victoria Park, Repulse Bay, and Ocean Park. Ocean Park's been around since like 1977, so they have a pretty loyal customer base. So it's going to be tough to try and take away from their customers. So because of this risk, we can expect to have a little bit lower amount of revenue than we first expected. But the best way we can mitigate this risk is to heavily market and advertise Hong Kong Disney all around Greater China and Hong Kong itself, and also offer deals or promotions within the first couple of months of opening. This would allow us to try and get a head start on our customer base and try and get some loyal customers right away. Another risk that you're facing by doing business in Hong Kong is the risk of natural disaster. The city of Hong Kong is actually the most at risk in all of Asia. They see floods, wildfires, and storms constantly throughout the year. And these natural disasters can cause a lot of unnecessary cost. Either damage to the rides themselves, or they have to go out of operation for a couple of days, or anything along those lines. It's going to affect their revenue in the long run. So the best way we can really mitigate this risk is to locate the park away from a forested area, and also locate on high ground to stay away from any flooding. And then another risk that you're facing is currency risk. Hong Kong actually does have their own currency. And I mean, for the most part, the inflation's been pretty good, but it has been known to be a bit erratic. In 1995, their inflation rate was actually above 10%. So this can cause a loss of revenue because as inflation goes up, a lot of citizens in China and Hong Kong, well, a lot of citizens in Hong Kong are going to spend their money on necessities like food and water and stuff to survive on, rather than, you know, amusement parks. And the best way we can really mitigate this risk is to keep an eye on the inflation rates and try and keep the price of entry at a reasonable price. And then our latest risk is the risk of money laundering. Hong Kong is an attractive spot for money laundering. And if one of Disney's top officials did get caught by doing illegal money laundering, then the reputation of Disney could be affected very drastically. And the revenues of Disney, not just in Hong Kong, but all around the world, could be affected by any crime done within Disney financially. And the best way we can mitigate this risk is to keep a close watch on our top officials and make sure they abide by the financial laws. And that concludes our project. Thank you.